Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. The conversation seeks to explore ways in which we can all make an impact and inspire each other to act. If you're new to this series, as most of you probably are, it's important to know that the point is not to create a comprehensive, overarching research project, but to gather the stories of people who have been affected in one way or another by the current administration's immigration enforcement policies and to share those stories with you. As a graduate student developing my final applied project, I hope to connect academic work to community action, and by speaking with people and telling their stories, this project will serve as a digital archive to counteract the administration's narrative. This will be the video that lays out the project's intent and the question we are all asking ourselves about where we position ourselves in this moment and how we build a foundation from which to move forward in a positive way. In this series, we'll combine storytelling, public policy analysis, and legal frameworks with practical resources to encourage dialogue and promote activism for fair treatment of immigrant and refugees. The project aims to foster empathy, challenge ingrained stereotypes, and inspire individuals to become advocates for change, ultimately building a more inclusive and civil society where the legal and human rights of non-citizens and citizens alike are upheld. The project will explore the current challenges faced by immigrant and refugee communities, avenues for changing beliefs and perspectives, such as increasing self-awareness to uncover unconscious biases and fostering empathy by actively seeking out diverse perspectives, and how promoting inclusive environments, embracing continuous learning, and advocating for meaningful change can contribute to a more just future. It has been my experience that people truly care about what is happening in this country and are disturbed by the ways individuals are being stereotyped, brutalized, and terrorized. I've always been sensitive to injustice, maybe because I've experienced it myself on a relatively small scale, and no one has been there ever to stand for me. But this time in our lives is different. People are suffering, and I feel a sense of urgency to act beyond mass protest. That sense of urgency kicked in at the beginning of the year when a young woman I know rushed to marry her partner out of the fear of not being able to get married after the inauguration of Donald Trump. She has since experienced a lot of emotional trauma and lives in a nearly constant state of anxiety over whether she made the right decision. One of my favorite and arguably most brilliant people I know needed to travel internationally this summer for a medical studies symposium. But because his passport gender doesn't match the gender on his birth certificate, he was very nervous about his ability to re-enter the United States, even though he's an American citizen. As a result, he has moved out of the country and has shared with me that he wonders if he will ever be able to come back home and feel safe. The US has lost a brilliant mind, not to mention a beautiful soul, to a country where his intellect and intentional research will come to benefit the world. I spoke with a friend in Chicago last week whose father was just able to gain his citizenship last year. The week before we spoke, a major ICE raid was launched in his neighborhood, and he worried that his father might be caught up and detained, or like so many others, battered by masked agents. My friend actually went to the back of the building where he's employed to stay out of the line of sight of ICE agents who passed by. His anxiety and fear were absolutely palpable, and it was all I could do not to cry. Crying doesn't do any good. So I asked him if they had a plan, if they know their rights, and he told me that they practiced exactly how to handle a situation like this if they were identified as targets. And then he said, but we're brown people, and we know the risk is pretty high. The stories are never ending, and those that have affected me most are maybe the young women I know who are part of the Hispanic community, some citizens, some DACA recipients, who have lived here their entire lives. They no longer feel secure in crossing the border to visit loved ones, and their loved ones fear coming to the US. They worry for the young men in their communities who are here without documentation, the parents who are here, some legally, some undocumented, and also for themselves. They wonder what will happen to my US born children if the administration removes my DACA protections. Where would I go and how would I live? And that possibility is very real. The Trump administration has already removed temporary protected status for immigrants and refugees from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Syria, and Venezuela, turning once legal residents of this country into criminals overnight. Their very existence has been criminalized. The brief stories I've shared with you here may not be as dramatic and emotionally devastating as the cruel brutality that we see in video from all over the country, but they are real and have devastating mental and emotional consequences. I have sat quietly through so many tears this year, feeling helpless to do anything about the terrorization of millions of people in this country. I've gone to therapy and tried to support the people in my sphere, but I know it's not enough, and I know I can do more. Maybe public protest isn't your thing, but if you are a humanist or are concerned about civil rights, equity, and justice, and you feel helpless to impact change, there is something you can do. And if we each do what we can, we will make a difference. I began swimming at my community pool every morning before work because I decided I needed some regular self-care and have met an incredible person there. Sally will be 89 years old in December and can still do a walking handstand in the pool. We've had some long conversations, and she has shared many of her life experiences with me. She told me some weeks ago that the most valuable thing her mother ever gave her was when she came for a visit at 70 years old and wanted to take a ride with Sally's husband on his new motorcycle. She looked at the bike and said, "Now, where do I put my feet?" Sally told me that when she went to Jamaica with the Peace Corps at the tender young age of 58, she stepped off the plane and thought, "Now, where do I put my feet?" It's about getting your footing, planting them firmly, and giving yourself a secure place from which to move forward. So that's what we're going to do in these first few videos. We're going to find a place where each of us can plant our feet.